Welcome all.
Hi guys.
Dev over there, Mike here. Music. Yeah. We're music for busy people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today we're doing something a little different, although we have done something like this before. You may or may not have seen our previous video in this series, but we're doing the best of 1971 today. We've already done the best of 1970. I tried to be objective in picking the 10 albums.
You let AI do it?
I kind of looked at album sales and general consensus. So it's not my opinion.
Okay.
These are the ones that have stood the test of time. We're going to listen to samples, although you may be familiar with some of the songs. You may not know they're on a particular album. So we're going to listen to little samples from each album. At the end, we will subjectively rate what we think the order of the top 10 is. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
We would love to hear in the comments what your guys' opinion is of the top 10 or
for
the order.
1971
albums. Yes, albums.
I think that I will hear some stuff that I really want to explore because we did in the last one. And I was just like, oh, I really want to hear this.
Now, before we get into the top 10, there were so many good albums from 1971 that I felt like we should just mention some honorable mentions.
Sure.
So these didn't make the top 10, but looking at some of the albums in this honorable mention, that tells you what a strong year 1971 was. So here are the honorable mentions for 1971. First, Pearl from Janis Joplin, which was her final album. That has Cry Baby, Bobby McGee, Mercedes-Benz. So some of her biggest songs are on that album. Unfortunately, it was released posthumously. She died just a couple of months after recording that album. Next would be Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney. So this was, I believe, Paul McCartney's second solo album. And when it came out, it was totally panned. People did not like it much. But when it's been reevaluated over time, people realize that it is a pretty great album. I think back then they were very judgmental because they were comparing everything to the Beatles.
That happens to a lot of
And they were also
too.
comparing Paul McCartney to John Lennon. Every Picture Tells a Story by Rod Stewart. That was probably his big breakout album as a solo artist. It has Maggie May on it, which is one of his biggest songs. Now this next one's actually a live album by the Allman Brothers Band at Fillmore East. They had a couple of studio albums out at this time, but this was their big breakout album, I think. It has Whipping Post Live, Big Jam on there. Then we have Black Sabbath, Master of Reality.
That I can't listen to yet because we might review it in the future.
Oh, we're going to review that in the future. So this is one of their well-regarded albums, but because it's such a strong year, it didn't make the top 10. Cat Stevens, he didn't make the top 10 last time either. Teaser and the Firecat, which has Peace Train on it, which is one of his biggest songs, if not his biggest song. The next one is pretty interesting because we just listened to this entire album on our channel. Metal by Pink Floyd.
And the movie.
Oh, we also watched Live at Pompeii. But this album, we enjoyed it a lot. And again, it's a testament to how strong this year was. The next one I'm not that familiar with, although I probably have heard a song or two off of it. It's called There's a Riot Going On by Sly and the Family Stone. That album maybe wasn't huge when it came out, but over time people have kept referencing it as a really big influence on the funk scene.
It doesn't have to have a blockbuster weekend to hold the test of time.
There was such a plethora of good music that people felt they couldn't just praise everything, so they really picked apart some stuff. And later, when people looked at it and saw how influential it was on other artists, they realized, wow, this was better than we were giving it credit for. The next album, once again, strong year. That's why it didn't make it, but Elton John, Madman Across the Water. Some people would consider that maybe one of his top albums, but again, it's such a strong year. What are you going to do? That one's got Tiny Dancer and Leave On it, which are two great songs. If I was picking the top 10, this would have been in the top 10 because as a kid, this was one of my favorite albums. Fragile by Yes. So that's got Roundabout on it.
Fragile.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's proof that I'm being objective because I would definitely put that in the top 10. Now let's start going through the top 10. We're going to go through these in the order that they were released. The first one up is not typical for us because it's more mellow and folky and that kind of thing.
And we're more rock.
We've been listening to classic rock, essentially. This one is Tapestry by Carole King.
I love me some Carole King.
When I was a small kid, I think my older sister had this album. Plus, this stuff was on the radio like nobody's business.
Yeah. Yes.
And
yes.
I think that most people would be familiar, and you included, would be familiar with many of the songs on this album. Carole King plays the piano wonderfully, and she wrote all these songs. Some of these songs were even hits for other artists.
She got on with it.
We'll just listen to a few highlights. This was released on February 10th, 1971.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
She could rock it out.
I feel the sky.
See, anybody can sing to this. I just want like a sangria.
These have cool riffs on them.
Stayed in bed all morning just to pass the time. And it's too late.
This is a female. This is like my karaoke of choice.
I'm sure you've heard this one too, although this was also a big hit for James Taylor.
When you're down and troubled, you just call out my name. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, you've got a friend.
So that was actually a hit for James Taylor as well. I think even a bigger hit for him than it was for her, even though she wrote it. But it's one of those cases where somebody's album was so huge that nothing they could do afterward could live up to it. This one came out on March 19th, Aqualung by Jethro Tull. This is one of my childhood favorites. Love this album. I think you'll know at least the first song.
I know the intro to this, but I don't
yeah, that's what everybody knows.
Song.
Sitting on the park bench.
What does that mean?
That's cool. Forrest Gump.
Great guitar solo.
That's actually a cool song.
I
What
also-
does Aqualung mean?
He's like a homeless guy or something.
Oh.
If I know the words, I'll sing along, but I never quite worry too much about the meaning. It's just because I get into the music so much that I lose track.
So bizarre.
I can't, because I like the music so much.
You're only getting half the story.
I was a kid. Leave me
Okay.
alone.
Okay.
Stop picking on my kid self.
I'm sorry. No, I wouldn't pick on him.
There's your flute.
Poor man, a beggar man, a thief. Cross-eyed Mary, I goes jumping in again.
I don't care. That's a jamming flute.
I like it. You okay? Okay. Yeah, you gotta be in a certain kind of mood, but that's rather impressive.
There's great riffs in there. And Ian Anderson, who's the main musical force behind it,
Yeah.
is incredibly talented. I mean, I like his voice. He writes most of the songs. He plays guitar, not electric guitar, but he plays acoustic guitar, he plays the flute, does all the singing. I mean, he's an impressive man. Next one is The Doors' final album, came out on April 19th, 1971. This is L.A. Woman.
Don't you love her badly? Don't you need her badly?
His voice.
Like she
Yeah, his
did
voice is awesome.
1,000 times before.
That's a strong contender.
They had a lot of good hits. They have a mix of little 3-minute ditties that are like great hits for the radio. And
And
they
then long
got a
epic
couple of
ones.
like 12-minute songs. This is the title track. This song's kind of long. It's like 7 or 8 minutes.
Well, I dig down about an hour ago.
It's nearly impossible to rate these kind of albums.
I know.
Especially the longer songs. Nappy music.
This is one of their biggest songs. Such a cool opening.
Riders on the storm.
Next up is another childhood favorite classic of mine, Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones, which was released on April 23rd. I made a video and it was the top 25 albums of all time, and this Sticky Fingers was one of those albums. Tell me this isn't a great opener. Stones had some badass sax on some of their songs. This is such a pretty song.
Yeah, you got satin shoes. Can you hear me knocking on the window?
Who's expecting this, man? You're not expecting that transition. That's like such a drastic, right into like almost a Latin-y type of groove, man. That is awesome.
And I totally bet most of the songs on this album are of that caliber.
Yes, this is a very solid album.
That matters. That does matter. I think they're phenomenal, though. It's another sleeper band for me, just like Black Sabbath, where it's like, oh.
This next one's kind of a weird one for us. It's an R&B album, but some people consider it the greatest R&B album of all time, so that's why it made it to this list. It's What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, released on May 21st, 1971. So this is a concept album. All the songs kind of bleed into each other. It's told from the point of view of a Vietnam vet, like coming home from the war, observing the country. So this album also made the top 25 on my video.
Mother, mother,
man, what a voice.
There's too many of you crying. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Whoa, oh, mercy, mercy me.
It's Marvin Gaye.
It's Marvin Gaye. You know Marvin Gaye, and that's his greatest album. So there you go.
If he's not an ambassador to some kind of loving, I don't know what is.
This next one is by an artist that I respect, love her voice, but I'm not that familiar with her catalog. Is Joni Mitchell's Blue, released on June 22nd. As I understand it, she wrote this album after breaking up with Graham Nash from Crosby, Stills and Nash. She kind of reminds me of Carole King, except Carole King plays piano, she plays the guitar, but again, they're just like brilliant songwriters and great singers and musicians. But there's not a lot of production in their songs.
The wind is in from Africa. Oh, you know it sure is hard to leave here, Carrie, but it's really not my home. Sitting in a park in Paris, France, reading the news and it sure looks bad. They were California,
man,
coming home. I'm going California, I'm coming home.
That voice, man. Angelic.
Oh, it's Christmas time.
So I wish I had a river I could skate away.
Don't we all? So do any more modern singers come to mind, like you feel that she may have influenced?
Oh, I'm sure.
I definitely hear Alanis Morissette.
I hear Jewel. I hear Tori Amos.
The voice dropping or raising and switching.
Voice control. You automatically assume
Yeah, it's like Bob
She's
Dylan.
great.
Yeah.
Right. There's reverence there. It's like you don't even have to listen to the music. You just automatically know she's in a different league. Who's next?
Okay, hold on. You want to know who's next? Who's Next is Next by The Who. This was released on August 14th. This one was also in my top 25. There's a lot of albums from 1971 on my top 25. I think it's most people's opinion that this is The Who's greatest album. This is one of those albums like you've heard every song on it certainly if you're a Who fan or a classic rock fan. And we reacted to several songs off of this album on our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Very classic opening to this album. Hit it, Keith.
Out here in the fields, I found for my meals. Teenage wasteland.
Roger Daltrey's voice is pretty amazing and massive. He's a great rock singer.
No one knows what it's like to be the bad man behind the blue eyes.
This is going to be hard.
This one, it's certainly one of those rock anthems, that's for sure.
We'll be fighting in the streets.
I think every classic rock station on the planet, if they make a commercial, they use that scream in there. It's just so iconic. This next album was released on September 9th. Imagine by John Lennon. This, of course, is classic, and not just because of the title
Top
track.
contender.
But the title track is so enormous. This is probably John Lennon's highest moment. At least that song is.
Imagine there's no heaven and the world will live as one. I was dreaming of the past. I'm sorry that I made you cry. Oh, now I'm just a jealous guy.
Lots of Beatles and McCartney references in this one.
So Sergeant Pepper took you by surprise. How did you sleep?
You can tell that song was written during the Beatles' divorce. Klaus Voormann on bass.
Clouds?
I think George Harrison's on guitar on most of this album. I don't have the proper shirt, but this is closest I have. This one is Led Zeppelin 4, or the Untitled album, or the Zoso album, or whatever you want to call it. This was released on November 8th. This was also in my top 25. And of course, we have already reacted to this entire album, so if you're interested in that, check it out.
Hey, hey, mama said the way you move. It's been a long time since I rock and roll.
Love me some John Bonham.
There's a lady who's short, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. If there's a
love when those
bus
drums
in
come
your
in.
hedgerow, don't be alone there.
Chills. Very iconic drum groove. That's so dirty, so swampy. That's another one of those albums where like every song is a classic. This is one of David Bowie's breakout albums. It's called Hunky Dory, released on December 17th, 1971. I think this was his 4th album? I don't know, something like that.
Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes. Oh, you pretty things. Don't you know you're driving your sailors fighting in the dance hall? Is their life on Mars?
That's tough.
That's tough. That's the roundup. Woo.
Okay, your runner-up list does make sense now.
Now it's time for our ratings. Totally subjective.
My brain hurts.
Number 10 for me. This is totally just because of the genre. Blue by Joni Mitchell. It's just not my type of music, but I love her voice and I do like it a lot, but it just doesn't stand up to some of these other ones because of the genre.
Technically, she's my number 10 too. It's definitely a mood. But It's one of those things, it's like you really want to
I just don't
luxuriate.
Yeah, okay.
In that kind of music, in that kind of album.
For me, if somebody put that on, I wouldn't complain.
No, it would be very pleasant.
But I wouldn't think to put it on myself. Similarly, for me, number 9 is just not my genre. It's What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. I acknowledge its greatness, and I love some of the songs on that album. It's a little bit dated, just a hair. What do you got for number 9?
I'm LA Woman.
Okay. You gotta have something to go on.
Very specific band.
Yeah. Number 8 for me was Tapestry by Carole King. So I'm following this. I love the songs on there, but again, like Joni Mitchell, it's not my wheelhouse. What's your number 8?
Your Buddies.
Jethro Tull?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I give due where it's due. Credit where it's due.
Stop it. Number 7 for me is LA Woman by The Doors. There's some songs I'm not really as familiar with, and I think most people don't know maybe anything off of that album except those 3 songs. Doesn't mean I don't like the album or think it's a great album. Compared to some of these others that are just so amazing, I got to put it at number 7.
Mine's Who's Next.
Okay.
Even though there's some slammers. The ones we listened to were just like, oh, I would really get into them. But compared to the other albums we have to discuss, that was hard.
Number 6 for me, I Did Imagine by John Lennon. Now, of course, that's...
I don't know you.
What? Looking at what's left, it's just that kind of thing. It's a great album. It's probably his best album. Look at the others that are coming.
Sure did.
All right, well, I really love most of these others coming, so I can't put it any higher in this case. And you?
What's going on? What's going on?
Well, that made it pretty high for you. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's Marvin
It's a beautiful.
Gaye.
It's a beautiful. Yeah, he's got a beautiful voice.
No matter what you're doing,
yeah,
it could be all sorts of circumstances, all sorts of get-togethers. You can hear that song, and it's just like that's Marvin Gaye.
Mm-hmm. Number 5 for me was David Bowie, Hunky Dory. I love David Bowie. He was one of my childhood top bands or artists. He just has better albums than that, but it doesn't mean that's not a great album. And nothing in the top of this list isn't great. So,
well, this is my tie.
Well, pick one arbitrarily as the number 5, and then, but we know it's a tie. Go ahead.
David Bowie.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to say about it?
I don't know enough about it, and I
His
think
biggest
that
stuff.
he is quirky, and some people will just not understand that.
I think a lot of people think David Bowie is quirky.
one.
I don't find him quirky because I'm used to hearing it, but a lot of people do think he's kind of avant-garde. He definitely changes his style very often. He went through different phases. Number 4 for me is Who's Next. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of The Who. I like them a lot, but they're not one of my favorite bands. So the fact that I put it at number 4, I just have to acknowledge that it's just such a great album because every song on this album is notable. What's your number 4? It tied.
Carole King.
That was the tie?
Yep.
Okay.
It had to be. She's another one of those people that no matter where you go, like I knew probably the whole song. I could have sung along to all those songs and not even known and just thought it in my head and just been like, oh, this is so, I hate to even call it, it's what pop music today aspires to be.
Yeah. It's an amazing album. All right, now we're getting into the home stretch here. Number 3, this is where I put Aqualung.
You know it much more intimately.
I know it better than you do,
Sure.
and I just know how strong an album it is. And I'm probably biased because I liked it as a kid. And when you like something as a kid, you can't help. Oh my God, it's so awesome. Most people know Aqualung, the title track. Whether it's your type of music or not, whether you're into prog rock or the flute or any of that stuff, I can understand you're not preferring it, but you have to acknowledge its musicianship.
Led Zeppelin.
Oh, that's fine.
That's the top 3.
There's no insults in the top 3, especially this year.
There's too many songs for them in their catalog now that I could not possibly rate one. Like, oh, this was their best album ever. Like, I can't do it.
This album is an amazing album. Sticky Fingers. There's just, to me, it's the Stones' best album.
That's my number 2.
And that was the best. I mean, that and Let It Bleed to me are the Stones' best albums by far. And it's just, it's got it all.
Of message.
For them, it's like quintessential them. If you had to tell a Martian who the Stones were, that's the album you would pick, I think.
Sure.
I didn't know if you were a big Rolling Stones fan.
I am not, but only because of ignorance.
Yeah, you don't know them very well.
I don't know very well.
But did you know those songs?
Yes.
Oh. There's a short on our channel if you want to see it. I gave her a classic rock quiz, and it's hilarious. So if you feel like laughing, I would look for that short on our channel. And one of the questions I asked her was, just name any Rolling Stones song at all. And she couldn't. I think it's obvious what my number 1 is. And yes, I'm biased, but I don't think anybody would fault me. It's not even my favorite Led Zeppelin album. If you take the Beatles out of the equation, a lot of people would put this as the greatest album of all time. Come on, Stairway to Heaven, Black Dog, Others. I mean, you can't. Oh my God. They had lightning in a bottle for this one. And what's left for you?
Linens.
Oh.
I know. I surprised myself. That album is specifically those songs that you picked. I have the biggest emotional reaction to. And when you can do that, no matter what you're doing, or that's just
his melodies and his singing, the way he sings some of that stuff, and his sliding voice and stuff. It
is mastery. You got to call it what it is.
We lost you too soon, John. Unfortunately. And now a word for our patrons. The patrons are the important people that keep this channel going. Their generosity is greatly appreciated, and we always like to thank them in every video.
And we just love them more.
Yes, if you would like to join that lovely exclusive club, please do. You are welcome. We welcome all. Here's the information. There are extra videos there just for our patrons. And if you'd like to leave us a tip, that's very nice of you. You can use PayPal or the thanks button in some of our videos. Any donations of $5 or more will be recognized in our next video. Oh, I know. Have you subscribed? If you haven't and you like the channel, it really does help. And keep with the comments. We love your comments. They give us motivation, and liking and sharing the video helps as well. So thank you for all that. Well, that was a lot of fun for me, at least. And I hope it was fun for you too.
Yeah.
And if you enjoyed this video, I really strongly recommend you check out our 1970 version of this video. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, bye-bye.
Singing, this'll be the day that I die.